He prayed every night for his master to kill him and end his shame. Flicker, the little clay lamp, knew he was a failure. A thin, almost invisible crack ran down his side, a flaw from the very day he was fired in the kiln. It was a weeping wound that constantly leaked a slow, greasy tear of oil. While his brothers stood proud on the shelf, their flames burning with a steady, golden brilliance, his own was a pathetic, sputtering thing, weak and starved. His constant shame had an antagonist, a name and a voice, Beacon. Beacon was the master's prize creation, a large, ornate lantern of flawless porcelain, whose light was so bright it cast shadows that seemed to mock the darkness rather than comfort it. "Look at the puddle maker," Beacon's voice would boom across the quiet workshop. "The master must be a sentimental old fool to keep such a leaky disgrace." Every night, when the master made his rounds, Flicker would shrink back. The master's hand would hover over him, and Flicker would send a silent, desperate plea, "Please. Just a slip of the fingers. Let me fall. Let me shatter. End this." But the master never did. Instead, he would simply refill him, his touch gentle, his expression unreadable. Tonight was different. It was the eve of the Festival of Light, the one night the entire village would come to see the master's work. This was Flicker's ultimate nightmare. To fail was one thing, to fail in public was a torture beyond imagining. In a desperate act, he tried to roll himself to the back of the shelf, hoping to hide in the shadows where his weakness belonged. But the master's hand found him. He was lifted into the air. This is it, Flicker thought, a surge of relief washing over him. The kiln. The hammer. Anything. The choice, he realized, was no longer his. But then the master did something worse than destruction. He placed Flicker on the very front of the main display table, in the place of highest honor, directly beside the magnificent beacon. A wave of nausea, a dizzying sense of vertigo, swept through the little lamp. The master began to fill them. Beacon received his oil first, filled to the brim, his perfect vessel swallowing the liquid greedily. Then the master turned to Flicker. And in a gesture of what could only be described as deliberate cruelty, he poured only a few drops of oil into him, barely enough to sustain a flame for an hour. It was a death sentence, but not the one he had prayed for. It was a sentence to public humiliation. The master was not going to kill him, he was going to force him to die in front of everyone. The festival began. Villagers filled the workshop, their faces glowing in the warm light of 100 perfect lamps. And in the center of it all, Flicker sputtered. He tried to burn brightly, to defy the master's cruel rationing, but it was a fool's errand. Every surge of his flame only made the oil leak faster, forming a dark, shameful puddle on the polished wood beneath him. "His flame is weeping, just like his body," Beacon's voice resonated, low enough for only Flicker to hear. What a pathetic display. Children pointed. A woman whispered to her husband, her words sharp as glass shards. Why would the master display a broken one? Each glance was a physical blow. A sudden draft from the open door swept through the room, and Flicker's flame bent sideways, nearly winking out. He held on by a thread of wick and will, the darkness licking at his edges. His defeat was inevitable, a slow, agonizing countdown. He watched the oil level in his belly drop with terrifying speed. Soon, the last drop was gone. The wick, starved and dry, glowed a desperate orange for a moment, then sizzled. And died. Darkness consumed him. The space he occupied became a black hole in a galaxy of light, more conspicuous in its absence than it ever was in its pathetic presence. The whispers grew louder. Beacon's light seemed to swell with triumph, casting an even deeper shadow where Flicker stood. The shame was absolute, a crushing weight that he thought would crack him completely. The master approached the table, his face a stony mask. He did not look at Flicker. He simply took a cloth and, with a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of disappointment, wiped away the oily puddle. Then he turned and walked away, leaving Flicker cold, dark, and utterly abandoned in the heart of the celebration. When the last villager had departed, the master returned. Flicker braced himself for the final, merciful blow. The master picked him up, his touch surprisingly gentle, and carried him not to the trash heap or the kiln, but to a dark, quiet corner of the workshop. He lit a single, tall candle. And in its soft light, Flicker saw the wall. For months, for years, this corner had been his place. And the oil that had leaked from his weeping wound, the very essence of his shame, had not been wiped away. It had stained the plaster. Drop by drop, tear by tear, it had soaked into the wall and formed a picture. It was a breathtakingly beautiful, ghostly image of a weeping willow, its branches flowing downwards in shimmering, semi-translucent trails of darkness. It was a masterpiece born of his flaw. The master had not kept him out of pity. He had kept him as a tool. A paintbrush. A wave of profound, earth-shattering relief washed over Flicker. He was not a failure. He was a secret artist. His purpose was not to give light, but to create beauty from darkness. His joy was short-lived. The next evening, the master brought a visitor into the workshop, a wealthy merchant, a known patron of the arts. "This," the master announced, his voice filled with a strange gravity, "is my finest work." He brought beacon over to illuminate the wall. Flicker, placed on a small stool before his creation, felt a surge of pride. But the merchant squinted, his lip curling in disdain. "This? It's an oil stain, man. A clever accident, perhaps, but it is unfinished. Crude." Beacon's light seemed to flicker with silent laughter. "Even your secret is a failure," his presence seemed to hum. The master's shoulders slumped. He looked at the wall, then at the merchant. "You are right," he said, his voice hollow. "It is incomplete." He walked to his workbench and picked up a heavy stonemason's hammer. Flicker's newfound hope shattered. The master, shamed before a patron, was going to destroy the painting. And him with it. He was going to erase his flaw, and the art it had created, from existence. As the master raised the hammer high, his shadow looming over both the wall and the little lamp, Flicker went cold with terror. But in that final, suspended moment, he saw it. The master was not looking at the wall. He was not looking at Flicker. His eyes were fixed, with an unnerving intensity, on Beacon. The epiphany struck Flicker with the force of a physical blow. The art was not the stain on the wall. The art was the story. This entire performance, the merchant's scorn, Beacon's arrogant light, his own despair, it was all part of the canvas. The master swung the hammer. But not at the wall. The sound was a deafening crack, a sharp, percussive explosion that silenced the entire world. It was the sound of perfection shattering. The hammer fell upon Beacon. The flawless porcelain lantern exploded into 1,000 white shards, its brilliant light extinguished in an instant. The merchant gasped. There was a profound silence, broken only by the gentle, steady flicker of the single candle. The master turned to the stunned merchant, his voice calm and clear in the sudden dimness. "The work was never the stain," he said softly. "The work was a choice. One vessel was perfect, and gave a brilliant but common light that is now gone forever. The other was flawed, and through its wound, it created a beauty that will last." He gestured to the painting on the wall, now looking deeper and more mysterious in the soft candlelight. "Now," the master said, "it is complete." The merchant stared, his mouth agape, not at the wall, but at the empty space where Beacon had stood. He understood. He had not been invited to see a painting. He had been invited to witness a philosophy. The master swept the shards of Beacon into a dustpan without a second glance. The merchant, humbled and silent, paid the master triple his asking price, not for a stained wall, but for the lesson. Later that night, the master placed Flicker not on the crowded shelf with the others, but alone, on the mantelpiece, a solitary exhibit. His gentle flame cast a soft glow on the wall, his life's work. He no longer prayed for the end. He prayed for the night, for his work was not yet finished. If we look deeply into our own lives, we find we are all made of clay. Some of us might feel like Beacon, polished and perfect on the outside, terrified that a single crack might reveal that our brilliance is nothing special. And some of us feel like Flicker, defined by a flaw we think is a source of shame, a crack that makes us feel worthless and broken. The truth is, we spend so much of our lives trying to hide our cracks. We polish them, we cover them up, we pray that no one will see them. But what if the master who made you knew about the crack all along? What if he did not see it as a mistake, but as an opening? The very place through which your most unique, most beautiful, most lasting work could pour out into the world. So, I want to hear from you. Comment below and tell me, have you ever felt like Flicker, ashamed of a flaw that you later realized was a source of strength? Or have you ever been a beacon, judging another's imperfection without understanding the beauty it could create? Your story matters, because it might be the light someone else needs to see their own cracks differently. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and share it with someone who needs to hear that their imperfections do not disqualify them, they qualify them for a unique purpose. Do not forget to subscribe for more stories that remind us of the hidden beauty in our world, and in ourselves. Until next time, be kind to yourself. Be kind to others. And remember that sometimes, the cracks are where the art gets in. Stay true, and keep shining, in your own perfectly imperfect way.